Hollywood has seen its fair share of whirlwind romances and shocking divorces. But few stories are as infamous or as tragic as the marriage between Ernest Borgnine and Ethel Merman. Borgnine, the Academy Award-winning actor known for his tough guy roles in Marty and the Wild Bunch, seemed an unlikely match for Broadway's brassy, larger-than-life star of Gypsy. Yet in 1964, against all odds, the two legends tied the knot. At first, it seemed like the union of two titans, an Oscar winner and the Queen of Broadway. But behind the flashing cameras and smiling photographs, their relationship was falling apart at lightning speed. Their honeymoon, meant to be a celebration, became a battleground. Within just 32 days, their marriage crumbled, leaving both stars humiliated and the press hungry for answers. For decades, the real reasons remained clouded by rumor. Was it jealousy? Clashing egos? A secret truth too messy for the public eye? When Ernest Borgnine and Ethel Merman first crossed paths in the early 1960s, few could have predicted that their brief romance would go down in Hollywood history as one of its most notorious disasters. Borgnine, already an Academy Award-winning actor for his role in Marty, 1955, had built a reputation as a rugged, no-nonsense performer. His larger-than-life personality carried over into his off-screen persona, where he was known for being gregarious, fun-loving, and unfiltered. Ethel Merman, meanwhile, was Broadway royalty. With a voice that could fill a theater without a microphone and a commanding stage presence, she had become the face of the American musical. Shows like Annie Get Your Gun and Gypsy cemented her as an icon of stage performance, brassy, bold, and unapologetically outspoken. To outsiders, they seemed like opposites. Borgnine's tough guy screen image clashed with Merman's Broadway glitz. But for a time, that very difference seemed to draw them together. They began dating quietly, often spotted at New York restaurants or Hollywood gatherings, and the media quickly latched onto the pairing. After all, what could be more fascinating than a Hollywood tough guy falling for Broadway's loudest diva? In 1964, after a short courtship, Borgnine and Merman shocked the entertainment world by announcing their engagement. The press buzzed with excitement. Magazines framed it as the ultimate power couple, two stars from different worlds uniting in what seemed destined to be a spectacular marriage. Borgnine himself later admitted that he was swept up in the thrill of it all. She was a star, and I was a star, he reflected. People loved the idea of us together. Their wedding on June 27, 1964, was a media circus. Friends, family, and Hollywood insiders gathered to witness what was billed as a glamorous union. Reporters clamored for photos, and the newlyweds basked in the spotlight. At the time, both spoke glowingly about each other, projecting an image of excitement and happiness. For fans, it seemed like a fairy tale. The gritty, Oscar-winning actor and the Broadway queen finally finding love later in life. But beneath the surface, cracks were already forming. Borgnine later confessed that the relationship had been built more on impulse than understanding. They hadn't truly taken the time to understand each other's personalities, quirks, and egos. Merman was used to being the center of attention, while Borgnine, for all his genial charm, wasn't about to play second fiddle. Their whirlwind romance, fueled by public fascination and the intoxicating glamour of fame, left little room for the kind of foundation that makes marriages last. Still, in those first weeks, they tried to play the role of the perfect couple. They smiled for cameras, appeared arm in arm at premieres, and spoke to the press about their happiness. But the real test would come on their honeymoon, when the cameras disappeared and the two were left alone with their clashing personalities. Looking back at '95, Borgnine admitted that the entire romance had been a mistake born of excitement and ego. "We rushed into it," he said bluntly. "I don't think either of us really knew what we were getting into." The whirlwind that began with charm, attraction, and spectacle would soon unravel spectacularly. What happened next on their honeymoon would reveal just how mismatched and combustible their marriage truly was. For most couples, a honeymoon is supposed to be a time of romance, relaxation, and intimacy, a celebration of love after the whirlwind of a wedding. But for Ernest Borgnine and Ethel Merman, their honeymoon became the spark that set their marriage ablaze, and not in a good way. Soon after saying their vows in June 1964, the couple embarked on a honeymoon to Las Vegas, a destination that promised glitz, entertainment, and plenty of spotlight, just the kind of place that suited their celebrity status. But while Las Vegas had dazzled them both before, it quickly turned into the setting of their marital nightmare. According to Borgnine's later recollections, the trouble began almost immediately. He claimed that Ethel seemed less interested in spending time as a newlywed and more focused on reliving her career highlights. She would sit there, Borgnine said in an interview years later, and talk about herself for hours, about this show she did, that song she sang, how the audience adored her. Borgnine, who prided himself on being grounded and approachable despite his fame, felt suffocated. It was like I didn't exist, he added. Ethel, for her part, had her own grievances. Friends of hers later said she was shocked by Borgnine's boisterous humor and sometimes crude behavior. He loved telling off-color jokes, laughing loudly, and being the life of the party. What fans saw as his charm, Merman reportedly viewed as vulgar. She had built her career on discipline, rehearsals, and a polished stage presence. To her, Borgnine's antics felt exhausting and immature. The tension only escalated. On one occasion, Borgnine claimed that Merman openly mocked him in front of others during their honeymoon, belittling his work as an actor compared to her Broadway stardom. He confessed bitterly later in life. She thought Hollywood was beneath her. She made it clear she saw herself as better than me. The clash of egos, barely concealed during their brief courtship, exploded in full view once they were alone together. But the most shocking detail came when Borgnine described what he called the disgusting truth about that honeymoon. In candid interviews late in life, he revealed that Merman's behavior was so unbearable that he often left her behind in their hotel suite just to escape her company. He admitted to spending more time at the casino tables and with old buddies than with his new bride. "I couldn't stand it," he said flatly. "Imagine marrying someone and within a week not wanting to be in the same room with them." The honeymoon became so toxic that people around them began to notice. Reporters, who had been tipped off to their Vegas trip, described seeing Borgnine looking sullen while Merman strutted about like she was on stage. One journalist later wrote that the two seemed more like rivals forced into the same spotlight than lovers enjoying a honeymoon. By the time the couple returned from Las Vegas, the marriage was already doomed. Borgnine privately admitted to friends that he regretted the decision, while Merman, in her typical blunt style, reportedly told her circle that Borgnine was a bore and a child. Their honeymoon, intended to be a celebration of unity, had instead magnified their incompatibility. The truth was clear. Two massive personalities had collided, and neither was willing to bend. Borgnine later summed it up in one biting sentence: "It was the worst mistake of my life, and I knew it before the honeymoon was even over." The stage was now set for what would become one of the shortest and most infamous marriages in Hollywood history. What followed was a public unraveling so fast and dramatic that it shocked even the most cynical Hollywood insiders. When Ernest Borgnine and Ethel Merman returned from their disastrous honeymoon, the cracks in their marriage weren't just visible, they were impossible to hide. What had been hyped as a golden union of Hollywood and Broadway royalty was now spiraling into one of the shortest, most embarrassing celebrity marriages in history. The press had been following their relationship closely, eager to see how this unusual pairing would play out. Ernest Borgnine, the rugged Oscar-winning actor beloved for his everyman charm, seemed worlds apart from Ethel Merman, the brassy Broadway star whose booming voice had made her a legend. The media had sold their marriage as a fairy tale, but it didn't take long for that illusion to shatter. Within weeks, rumors began swirling. Columnists whispered about screaming matches, icy silences, and constant bickering. Paparazzi snapped photos of Borgnine looking grim, while Merman appeared equally frustrated. The gossip was fueled by their own actions, rather than trying to put on a united front. The couple seemed almost indifferent to hiding their disdain. Ethel Merman, never one to mince words, reportedly told friends that Borgnine's habits disgusted her. She didn't like his bawdy humor, his gambling, or his loud personality off-screen. She believed she had married beneath her, a harsh judgment that Borgnine never forgot. Meanwhile, Borgnine confided to his close circle that Merman was self-absorbed, endlessly talking about her past glories, and dismissive of his achievements as an actor. The humiliation reached new levels when Merman released her memoir. In a shocking move, she devoted an entire chapter to her marriage with Borgnine and left it completely blank. The statement was clear. Their relationship had meant so little to her that it wasn't even worth words on a page. Borgnine years later admitted how, "Spitting in my face," he said. "The tabloids had a field day. Headlines screamed about the marriage meltdown, speculating about what had gone wrong. Was it jealousy, ego, or something darker? To fans, it was almost unthinkable that two stars with such larger-than-life personalities couldn't find common ground. But insiders weren't surprised. They were like oil and water, one friend of Borgnine recalled. There was never a chance it was going to work. Borgnine later confessed that the speed of the collapse stunned even him. "We didn't even make it a month," he said. That's how bad it was. 32 days. And it was over. The official divorce papers cited incompatibility, but behind that legal phrasing was a storm of bitterness. The public nature of their breakdown made it all the more humiliating. Borgnine, who valued his reputation as a hard-working, grounded actor, felt embarrassed by the constant headlines mocking his failed marriage. Merman, too, found herself the subject of ridicule. Broadway fans, who had idolized her for years, suddenly viewed her as cold and cruel for the way she dismissed Borgnine. What stung most for Borgnine was the feeling of betrayal. He had entered the marriage with genuine hope, even love, but came out of it feeling mocked and diminished. It was disgusting the way it all played out, he admitted decades later. Not just behind closed doors, but in front of the whole world. In the end, the Borgnine-Merman marriage became less about romance and more about spectacle. Their union lasted barely over a month, but its fallout haunted both of them for years. For Ernest Borgnine, it was a lesson in how quickly love could turn to loathing, and how unforgiving the public eye could be when two stars collided. By the time Ernest Borgnine reached his mid-90s, he had lived through a career that spanned more than 6 decades, won an Academy Award, starred in countless films and television shows, and experienced 5 marriages. But when asked about the shortest of those marriages, the infamous 32-day union with Ethel Merman, he didn't mince words. At 95, he finally opened up about what he called the disgusting truth of that chapter in his life. For years, Borgnine had been asked about Merman. Some interviewers brought it up playfully, others more seriously. He usually shrugged it off with a joke or a quick change of subject. But in his later years, with nothing left to prove and little to lose, he decided to tell the story exactly as he remembered it. "The truth is," he said bluntly, "it was a disaster from the start. She didn't respect me and I couldn't stand her." His voice, though weakened by age, carried the same gravelly conviction that had made him a Hollywood favorite. She spent all her time talking about herself, about her career, about her glory days. I was invisible to her. That's the disgusting truth of it. There was no love, no partnership, nothing. Borgnine went further, admitting details that he had kept quiet for decades. He described nights when Merman would ridicule him, even in private, comparing her Broadway fame to his Hollywood success and insisting she had accomplished more. He confessed that she mocked his friends, disliked his sense of humor, and treated him as if he were beneath her. "It wasn't a marriage," he explained. "It was a contest, and one I didn't want to play." What pained Borgnine most was not just the failure of the marriage itself, but the way it played out in public. "I felt humiliated," he said. "It wasn't just the fighting behind closed doors. It was the headlines, the gossip, the way she put a blank page in her book instead of saying anything about me. That was cruel. It was like she wanted to erase me." And yet, despite the bitterness, Borgnine admitted that he learned a great deal from the ordeal. He realized how destructive ego could be when two strong personalities collided. He also came to appreciate the value of humility and respect in a relationship, lessons that guided him in his later marriages, especially his long and happy final one to Tova Tresnes. When reflecting on Merman herself, Borgnine did not resort to outright hatred. Instead, he spoke with a weary honesty. She was a great talent, no doubt about it. She could hold an audience in the palm of her hand. But as a wife, she was impossible. I wish her well, but I wouldn't wish that marriage on my worst enemy. Fans who heard Borgnine's late-life confessions were stunned by his candor. For decades, the details of their marriage had been reduced to a Hollywood punchline, just another celebrity mismatch. But in his own words, Borgnine revealed the deeper wounds, the humiliation, and the emotional scars that lingered long after the divorce papers were signed. In the end, the disgusting truth wasn't just about petty arguments or bruised egos. It was about the emptiness of a union that never should have happened. Borgnine, with his trademark bluntness, summed it up best. Marriage is supposed to be about love, respect, and laughter. With Ethel, I had none of that. What I had was the worst mistake of my life. And I'll never forget it, even in his 90s, as he looked back on a remarkable career and life filled with triumphs. Ernest Borgnine was still haunted by those 32 days. It was a reminder that even the brightest stars could stumble into darkness, and that sometimes the shortest chapters leave the deepest marks.